wonderful people. I am Alice Strange, and this is Magic in the Mind podcast, where spirituality and psychology intersect. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be doing this with you all today. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you may not know, but there's a video element to this podcast today. And so it was exciting and a little hard for me to decide to put this together and actually make a video podcast, but I'm really excited we're here doing it. I'm really excited. Today we are focusing on a deity, and we're learning about her in detail, and that deity is Freya, the Norse goddess of fertility and war and beauty and death and cats. Among other things, you may have heard of her, but outside of those who worship her, the whole picture is often not really there. So today I'm going to give you the research, and I found some from her earliest mythologies and appearances to personal stories from those who have had encounters with her in their practice. The last couple things I'll mention real quick. My Instagram links are in the description. The podcast Instagram is more about like when episodes go out and what's coming up next, and it has like little audio clips and little quotes and fun little things like that I really enjoy giving out to you, and I hope that people appreciate them. My personal Instagram is a little bit more of like me and my practice, lots of pictures of my plants, some affirmations I find useful. I'm going to start posting a lot more personal, showing my face kind of stuff, because I was very scared to do that for a long time. Obviously, we're on YouTube now, not that scary. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. And you can look out for me to be on other social media platforms here pretty soon. So fun stuff. And the last thing, I am a part of a spiritual community. I'm a moderator. It is run by a friend of mine, and it is called Journey to Your Soul. I'm officially now hosting two groups, well, one group a week and one group bi-weekly. And it's open to any of the members. It's completely free. The link will be in the description. But if you want to come and just you video chat and do Zoom calls and get to know each other, me plus many other really great, wonderful people who have a spiritual mindset, there's a way for you to do that. We can get to know each other, you can get to know lots of other wonderful people, and you can learn, or you can share, and you can teach whatever it is you're here to do. So the link is in the link is in the description. So now on to Freya. So first we're going to look at what we know from scholarly sources. This section is mostly a quick rundown of just all the things we know about Freya from the original writings in the Poetic Edda and then later the Prose Edda. I'm not going to get into exactly what that means. They're just like where the stories are held, and there are two of them, and not a lot, but anyway, you can do your own research on that if you really want to. I'm going to make small pit stops along this journey to like fill in some information gaps that will help you to better understand Freya. But I will right now downright warn you, I have no idea how to pronounce most of the names in this whole podcast. So I did my best to find correct pronunciations. If they're not correct, feel free to tell me. But I'm just going to say I'm sorry up front. Excuse the butchering of names. It will happen. So to get started, Freya was the most mentioned goddess in Norse mythology. There were lots of gods that were mentioned. I don't want to say a lot. Maybe a few gods that were mentioned more than Freya. But of all the goddesses, Freya was the most mentioned. A quick overview. She's associated with love, beauty, fertility, sex, war and death, gold, cats, magic, and witchcraft. That is a very wide range. Wide range for her, and I love it. So She was also known to be like the most beautiful goddess, just downright. She was the most beautiful goddess of all of them. Typically, when people like talk about what she looked like, they describe her with long strawberry blonde hair, eyes that are like blue. That the quote, they reflect the sea in color and depth. That's beautiful. She's also a shapeshifter, so like we got to keep that in mind. Like she can look like whatever she wants. So yeah. Her name means the lady. Just Freya means the lady, and her twin brother Freyr, his name means the Lord. So there's that. Friday. This is funny. So Friday is actually Freya's day. I think it originated in Scandinavia. They named the days of the week after gods and goddesses, I think. And Freya was part of this group, the Vanir, and she had was kidnapped or traded to. I'm not remembering perfectly. She had to be with the other kinds of gods. I also can't remember the name of. I'm doing my best, guys. So she was with the other types of gods, and they didn't know magic. So she is the one who taught magic to those gods, who therefore taught it to the world, and that's where magic comes from. I'm pretty sure this is the right story. Freya, has just a very magical everything about her, and she teaches Odin magic, and Odin has to literally hang upside down from the world tree and for like a long period of time, and like go through all this like pain and suffering just to be able to like grasp magic. So like it was a big thing that came so natural to her. Just to illustrate, the magic is very powerful. The magic they're talking about in this is very powerful. So yes, as we were saying, Freya is a witch or a sorceress or whatever, and she used a lot of magic in her stories. One thing is Freya is heavily associated with runes. You might be familiar with runes. They're like the alphabet. There's like a Celtic version. There's lots of versions, but there's like an agreed upon. What is it? The Elder Futhark. Yes, Elder Futhark. So the runes are like little, letters basically, spiky kind of, and the runes were used by the Norse, the Elder Futhark, and they were first like originated in Germanic tribes around the transition to the Common Era. So the Common Era, and so each rune has a phonetic, like an alphabetic, like a sound to it, but it also has an inherent meaning. It means a certain thing. So it'll make it sound like the alphabet, but it also has a word or an idea attached to it. And this plays into the ritualistic and the magical side of runes. The Norse were known to use runes for divination and protection charms and spells and things like that. So they used them magically, and today people still use runes in this type of way. They use them a lot for divination. Runes are great for divination. They're kind of also a little bit kind of like sigils, just like you don't create them out of nowhere. They're just like pre-charged symbols with a certain kind of idea behind them. And runes are considered by some the best way to contact Freya. Freya was all about the runes. The runes were her thing. And so, if you want to contact her, runes are a great way to do that if you have that ability. So, in a few stories, Freya's magic was really, really outlined. One of them, it showed that the magic was tied to her emotions. She was very angry at a situation, and her anger, her just natural anger, on Earth, where she was on Earth, shook the home of the gods. And we have to keep in mind, the Norse believe that there's a world tree and the worlds are attached to the tree in different ways. So her anger not only shook that Earth, but also up the tree into the home of the gods. Like, we're talking super fucking powerful. In another story, she was able to just resurrect a whole ass woman and then had to control and create fire to defend herself from said woman. Interesting story. So here's something that most people don't know. I didn't know, honestly, until I started researching Freya. But half of the people who die in battle go to Folkvanger. It's a hard one for me to say. Which is Freya's heavenly hall. And Odin gets the other half in Valhalla. Folkvanger is a meadow, just a big meadow, and it has a large hall that belongs to Freya, and there are love songs constantly being played there. And that's just like, I do believe she picks first. She gets the first pick of all of the people who die in battle, and she brings them to her, heavenly hall, and then Odin takes his half, the rest, to Valhalla. And, we hear lots about Odin and Valhalla, but we never hear anything about Freya and Folkvanger. So that's just a little weird to me. Weird. I'm going to start telling people that randomly. And, I'm already an awkward conversationalist because I know way too many stupid facts to ruin, like, everything fun. So now people will start talking about Valhalla and Odin, and I'll be like, did you know? Yeah. Personal side tangent. Just saying. I'm going to ruin some days with that, for sure. And so, moving back on to Freya. She owned a cape. Now, this is cool. She owned a cape of falcon feathers that gave the person wearing the cape the ability to fly. And I think that's incredible. And I do believe that it is said when she wears it, she fully shapeshifts into a falcon. So, and she wasn't the only one to use it. She loans it out a couple times in the Eddas, and some other gods get to use it. Just interesting things. Now, this is a big part of Freya. I'm trying to get the word right. Brisinamen. I practiced all of these before we got on camera, okay, I promise. Brisinamen is a necklace. It's a magical necklace, and it has great magical power. And it's so commonly associated with Freya's mythology. When people think of Freya, they often think of this beautiful necklace, the most beautiful necklace in the world. So I'm going to give you as quick as possible version of the story of how she got it, because mythology is fun, and it shows you a bit of what these stories are like, what Freya is like, and it's just fun, okay? So here we go. Brisinamen, in the Old Norse language, Brisinga was fire, and men was jewelry. So it was fire jewelry, and Brisingamen, fire jewelry. So it was the most beautiful necklace in the world, and was forged by the four dwarves, Ulfric, Berlin, Dvalin, and Greer. So, Freya was walking by and saw the dwarves. She was completely amazed by the necklace they were making and wanted to buy it with gold and silver. However, the dwarves did not care about the treasures she offered, but they promised she would get the necklace if she spent a night with each of them. Freya accepted the offer and thus acquired Brisingamen. The Brisingamen carried protective forces, which is something Freya could not get too much of. She chose not to tell anyone about the necklace or how she got it. But everything has its consequences, even in this case. Somehow, Loki discovered that Freya had received Brisingamen, and also how she had paid for it. The insidious and deceitful Loki gossiped to Odin about how Freya paid for the necklace. And according to old myths, Odin and Freya had some kind of love affair. We'll get into that later. So, what happened then? Well, Odin got furious and decided to punish Freya. It can be assumed there was a lot of emotion involved here from Odin's side toward Freya. The trickster Loki decides to steal the Brisingamen from Freya. Many nights he guarded Freya's house, hoping that she would forget to lock the gate. But Freya was not so careless. So it took a little imagination to figure out how Loki would manage to get into Freya's home. Loki found a small crack in the gate and turned into a fly. That way he could easily crawl through it. Unaware of the intrusion of the fly, Freya lay inside sleeping with the jewelry around her neck. The necklace lay with the buckle facing down, which meant that Loki could not undo it without risking waking Freya. But Loki was smart, so he turned into a flea and bit Freya on the cheek, so that she woke up and turned around. In this way, Loki could easily undo the buckle and steal the necklace from Freya. Loki hid Freya's necklace at a skerry called Singastan. There, he transformed into the shape of a seal and lay down to guard it. When Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, heard about the theft, he immediately understood that it was Loki who stole the necklace. He, too, turned into a seal and went to Singastan, and it was a wild fight between the two seals, Loki and Heimdall. But Heimdall won in the end and gave Brisingamen back to Freya. Heimdall is an enigmatic god who was connected to the world tree Yggdrasil. An interpretation of his name is he who shines over the world. And then it's understandable that Freya's Brisingamen glowed a little extra when Heimdall returned the magical necklace to its real owner, Freya. I think that's cool. I think that's fun. I hope you enjoyed that. But we will continue on down the list of things we know from the research. Freya had a battle swine. Yes, a pig she rode into battle. A boar. Okay, it's not like a pig, but it's a boar, and she could ride him. And his name was Hildisvini. Kind of sounds pretty funny to me. I don't know. But she also has a chariot that is pulled by two cats. That is something a lot of people know about Freya. They think the cats that pulled the chariot may have been lynxes, possibly gray Norwegian forest cats, as they are also pretty large cats. But usually the color gray comes up, or the fact that it's a lynx. They are lynx. So that's a very popular fact. I'm not going to go into huge detail about that, but she had a chariot that was pulled by cats. Probably gray or lynx or both. In the mythology and in real life, it is said that Freya will go to great measures to protect her followers. There's a whole story of how one guy just built like an altar to Freya, and she goes on this huge adventure to like help him in some way, just because he asked nicely and he had like been giving her offerings. I think that's so fucking cool. And like it kind of reflects in like her followers today and the people who still follow her. And so we get a couple little stories like that at the end of all of this. So hold on for that. So her partner, Other, was frequently gone, and Freya would cry tears of red gold for him. She would also often go off searching for him and do that under fake names to disguise herself. And the red gold tears, is why she is often associated with gold. There's a big debate on whether Freya was a whore or not. Whore. Quotes. There are a few things to consider, okay? First of all, monogamy was not the norm. And having multiple partners was really accepted back then. But there is still debate on if she did have other partners because she was very devoted to her partner. In one story, Loki is insulting all of the gods and goddesses, and he accuses her of sleeping around, even with her own brother, and she denies it. But we have to consider the source too. Like, I mean, Loki do be like that. Like, you know what I mean? Loki be like that sometimes. And then there's another story where the witch we talked about that she resurrected accuses her of sleeping around as well. Maybe that's just a common insult. I don't know. But the witch said the same thing. But there's also another story where she refuses to pretend to be Thor's wife because she would be thought of as a whore. But, you know, above all, the things we need to really remember is that monogamy was not the norm. Back then, you had partners, but you also had, like, flings. You know, it was just kind of how the people back then worked in their relationships. And then I think the biggest part we need to think about is the influence Christianity had on the writings of the Eddas, and the fact that Freya was a fertility goddess. And Christians at the time had a real problem with fertility goddesses in general, especially. And very often a lot of fertility goddesses were very disrespected, seen as despicable, seen as unholy, or they would take that part of the goddess's story completely out of the picture, just totally erase it. And an example we're going down a rabbit hole here, okay, but I did the research. An example of this is I think in the Celtic thing, it's pronounced Brige, but I'm going to call her Brigid because that's what it looks like. Brigid was also a fertility goddess, but she was particularly, like, the people were particularly fond of her, and the Christians ignored the sex part. They ignored that whole sex and stuff, like, they erased that as best they could, but they focused on the aspect of her being a mother and a child protector. And eventually Brigid became Saint Brigid to help the local Celtic people convert to Christianity. So she was literally a fertility goddess, all about, like, having sex, making babies, plants growing, like, abundance in general. And the Christians, like, made her a saint just to, like, get people to like the Christian church better. And it's happened to so many goddesses. It's super unfortunate, but not the point of this podcast. So, back to Freya again. Yes, one final note. Christians rewrote a lot of what we know about the original traditions, and it's not far-fetched to think that they would focus on it in a more negative way. In Freya's particular situation. Maybe she wasn't such a whore. They just didn't like the idea of a fertility goddess, so they made it look that way. But anyways, moving on to the next section. This section, I'm going to be real short, real concise, because I did so much research that I got really burnt out on the topic. So here we go. There is debate whether or not Freya and Frigg are different or the same goddess. Sometimes people think Frigg and Freya are the same goddess. Some people think they are different, like distinct individual goddesses. And we're going to go over that real quick, just like the stuff. To be really upfront, most people who practice consider them to be separate, but not everybody agrees on this. And so first we'll look at the names. The names. FREYA means lady, which could, by some people I've seen, don't consider that a real name. It could be considered not a real name, like a title. Frigg means love or friendship. And that is similar to Freya's traits, some of them. Freya used many names while traveling to conceal her identity, so it is easy to get confused. And some will say that Frigg is one of her pseudonyms. And then moving on to partners, Freya is married to Other, which translates to Mad One or Madness. And Frigg is married to Odin. Other, Odin, the O's. So there's speculation that Other and Odin may be the same god, but there's no proof either way. We really just don't know. We know that Freya and Odin specifically had some kind of relationship. It's possible that he was married to both of those women, because the culture of the time supports that. In the story we talked about with Loki insulting the gods, he insults Frigg and Freya separately. They both get their own insults. So, and I will just kind of, this is a little hard to grasp, and I'm gonna try to find the YouTube video and share it if I can, but there was kind of a YouTube video I watched that was just about this question, and the video kind of concluded with an idea that I think is worth thinking about. It is possible that Frigg and Freya are the evolution of one goddess in two different aspects. Okay, hear me out. Freya was thought of as the lady, young, youth, free, lady, warrior. Frigg was mother, protector, tribe leader, things like that. So it's possible that Freya started as just Freya, and as she continued in the mythologies in her life, if you believe that she walked the earth, as she continued, people grow up. You change sometimes, and I don't think that it's too much to think that she could have matured in a way. And so as she continued, she could have split into two aspects of the same goddess. So we have Freya, and then she's going along, and then she splits into two, and we have Frigg and Freya. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, she was very fun and a warrior and like freedom and power, women, blah blah blah. And then like as she gets older, she kind of becomes more motherly, a more mature version of a young warrior woman. Just the tribe leader, the mother, the protector, like those things kind of fit. So this is not my theory at all. I did not come up with this theory, but the end point of this is no matter what side you're on, whether you believe they are two completely separate beings, or if you believe that they are one whole being, or if you believe that they are an evolution of the same, it doesn't matter. Whatever side you're on, you can reach out to each part as its own separate energy. Just reach out to the aspect that you're wanting in your spell. If you want the fertility, okay, reach out to that. If you want the protector, reach out to that. You can do, individually parts. You can do the whole thing all at once. You can pick and choose. Like, there's so much freedom, and there's nothing wrong with anybody's practice. Your practice is just fine, no matter, as long as you're not hurting anyone and not doing anything like disrespectful, you're probably going to be okay. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Done. Have you ever found yourself feeling lonely or isolated in your spiritual practice? Is it hard for you to find like-minded people you can relate to and connect to? Well, let me tell you about the community Journey to Your Soul. This is an online community for people into spirituality, but not just your normal love and light, unauthentic, everyday bullshit. This is a group that includes a chat, a post feed, and scheduled Zoom meetings on a regular basis. And we talk about psychic gifts, energy healing, mediumship, star seeds, light workers, tarot readings, oracle readings, and anything else in the spiritual realm. Here's a quote about Journey to Your Soul from the leader, Barbie. This is a place about helping each other through their spiritual journey to finding God consciousness. To know that we're here and no one has to go it alone. Personally, this group has helped me so much to grow my psychic gifts, and I've even brought in new abilities such as connecting with other spirit guides and ancestors. I don't live in an area with very many spiritual people, and this community has given me a place to be my authentic self and get advice and even close friendships. I highly encourage you to check it out and become a member of Journey to Your Soul. Check out the link below in the description. Now, back to the podcast. So here we are at the associations with FREYA. This is just a super quick glance at things that are associated with FREYA, but it is not an exhaustive list. I have like colors and plants and herbs and rocks, and just like everything that you... This is basically like if you want to start working with FREYA, like these are the associations. Listen to this podcast, write them down, share them, use them however you want. But you know, it's just associations. So the colors she's associated with really depends on what aspect of her you're trying to get a hold of. So for the fertility kind of part of FREYA, you're looking at like greens. You want greens. For FREYA, the love goddess, gold and pink are usually associated. For FREYA, the warrior, white and red. For FREYA, the magical practitioner, deep purple gray. And that was literally the color they said. Deep purple dash gray. Purple gray. So I can picture that in my mind. I don't know if you can picture that in your mind, but it feels like a fitting color for a magic user. So animals that are associated with FREYA: cats, falcons, rabbits, ladybugs, boars, makes sense, swallows, sparrows, and horses. It's a very, very big list, and the one I find the most interesting is ladybugs, because I don't know why in the world that would be one of them. Like, cats, okay, the thing with her cats. Falcons, she flew as a falcon. Rabbits, okay, fertility. But ladybugs? Ladybugs? That's interesting. I love it. I love it a lot, but like, it's odd. And I saw that in a lot of sources. That's not just one source. I saw that in a lot of places talking about ladybugs. Weird. Anyways, essential oils that you can associate with FREYA. We have benzoin, birch, cypress, myrrh, rose, sandalwood, and vervain. And that's going to kind of overlap with the next section, which is plants. And these plants, let me tell you, there's a lot of them. There's a lot, and they are in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to read them. And you can have fun. Just hold on. Okay, so we start with almond, arnica or arnica, bedstraw, benzoin, birdberry, clover, cypress, English daisy, hemp, henbane, holly, mistletoe, mugwort, opium poppy, primrose, rose, strawberry, thyme, vervain, and yarrow. So those are the plants, okay? She has favorite foods. Actually, people talk, like, there are stories of her and her favorite foods. So we know that she likes ale and apples, barley, pretty much any edible flowers are appropriate, honey, mead, and pork. Those are things that she has been cited to like eating if you want to make her a little dinner or a feast or something. And this is weird. I don't know. When I was looking this stuff up, there's a list of like favored people, like people she are her favorite type of people. That's so funny to me. But she has a favorite type of person, and I've never seen them before. But they are soldiers and veterans, jewelers, and seers, shamans, witches, and practitioners of the magical arts. So, it makes a lot of sense. Other symbols, just randomly, that are associated with Freya are the Northern Lights and swords. Now, we're moving on to working with Freya. First of all, I want to explain that I am not going to approach how to do deity work in this podcast. That is for another day. This is just information that you can use to personalize your deity work to reach Freya if that's your goal. There's plenty of good sources out there for deity work and like how to approach that. Find a creator that you like, and or just like sample a good variety of what other people say. I think that's a good way to approach it, but I'm not doing that here today, so sorry. But I'm going to give you the personalization kind of down. So Freya was loved and worshipped over a vast European territory, including Scandinavia, Iceland, Greenland, the Germanic lands, Holland, and Anglo-Saxon Britain. She remains one of the most beloved and widely venerated pagan goddesses today. Yeah. When colonization was in full swing, no spirit annoyed Christian authorities more than Freya. Freya herself is the role model for female autonomy, which is something the Christians considered horrible and sinful. She is considered one of the most approachable deities in the Norse pantheon, and many people who work with this pantheon will mention how easy it is for you to reach out to her, or for her to reach out to you, which is common. She is super helpful in any situation involving love. If it has to do with love, call in Freya. Also, love songs and poems are like super special to her. Like that's one of her big, in her hall, she has love songs playing forever for the rest of eternity. Like she likes them a lot. If you are having issues with fertility, or someone you care about is having issues with fertility, she can be called on for this. And she may be able to help you on the spiritual side of things when it comes to fertility issues. Please don't take this as a sign to worship Freya rather than go to your doctor. I am not insinuating that she can heal you, just that the spiritual part of your life may benefit from having Freya in it if you struggle with infertility. She literally is a fertility goddess, but also a goddess of other attributes that can help when things get hard in, regarding fertility. She is also known to help people cross over from this life to the next, and is called upon to assist in the dying and their going on to the afterlife. And as we talked about earlier, Freya is known to be heavily associated with runes, and many people choose to channel her through the use of runes. She also is known to help people learn how to use runes, or even other types of divination. Divination's kind of her thing. That was a very Vanir type thing to know and learn about. And so divination is that's for her. So if you do want to ask, this is a small little tip, if you do want to ask for help with divination and learning, you can try just leaving her an offering and simply asking for help. Like, just asking is good enough. You know, you probably want to make sure you've at least introduced yourself and had a little bit of deity work in there somewhere, or prayers or veneration or anything. But she, again, is very approachable, very kind, understanding goddess. So it's always okay to try if you've done the right things first. So here is a huge list of offerings that you could give to Freya. This one I didn't think of. Naturally shed cat hair or claws. I love that. I'm going to list some gemstones, and the first two I will mention, ruby and amber, are the best of the best. Amber is actually the best of the best. Amber is her thing, but rubies also, because of the red gold tears. But also a handful of other stones are good, such as red jasper and malachite. You could use tiger's eye, carnelian, or citrine, or emerald, or jade. All of those are pretty much okay, good to go. Also, you can use metals as offerings, like metal pieces. Silver, gold, and copper are all just fine, but gold is the best by far. Necklaces, or any jewelry really, make good offerings. Honey, mead, or wine, kind of going back to the favorite foods thing. Here's an interesting one: perfume. She loves beauty, she loves, you know, that kind of thing. Perfume is something she loves as an offering. You can put a fancy old-fashioned perfume bottle, or one of those fancy ones you buy, and have like a special perfume in it, your favorite perfume. You could enchant a perfume with her essence, or like ask her to help you like make it so that she's with you all day, and you spray the perfume. Like, I'm getting really creative here, but perfume is a good offering. She'll take that. And then there's some magic you could do down the line with that. So out of like some herbs that would be appropriate, like primrose, holly, hemp, mugwort, and then just like any kind of flower. Flowers are great. She's a fertility goddess. She loves beauty. So flowers are good to go. She loves strawberries, apples, and raspberries. So fruits are good, but especially strawberries, apples, and raspberries. Anything with Celtic knotwork. I've seen a lot of like metal pieces that have that carved into them, but like even just like getting a cord, like a string, like a thicker kind of cord, and learning a Celtic knot that you can make yourself. I've seen on Pinterest, if you type in how to, or like Celtic knotwork DIY, or Celtic heart knot DIY, and there's this beautiful heart thing you can make with just one strand. You make a perfect like heart knot in the middle, and I've seen it, I haven't done it, but it's out there. So like that would not only be like an act of like an offering, but also like an act of devotion to Freya, learning to do that. And that's something gods and goddesses do that we don't ever talk about. On to the next. Strawberries and chocolate, or really any kind of aphrodisiac. Yep, she'll take it. One thing you can do that is a offering and a act of devotion is writing love songs or poems about love in general, but in honor of her, saying, "In your name I write this poem," and write it, or at the end dedicate it to her. If you want to go the extra mile, if you feel like you can do it, you could write it about her. That would be really, really nice. I would love if someone gave me that as a gift. So like, I think a goddess would too. I don't know. Sounds great to me. And then talking about acts of devotion specifically, you hear from a lot of sources that helping cats in ways such as like adopting them from a shelter, or donating to a rescue, feeding your local feral cat population, or at least part of them, or even just volunteering at a shelter, volunteering to go in and play with the cats or clean up the mess or whatever it is. Those are acts of devotion to Freya, especially if you, in your mind, are doing them for Freya, keeping her at the forefront of your mind. Again, not going to get into deity work, but you know what I mean. Okay, on to real life stories from real life people. These are all stories I gathered online from people who practice with Freya in their life at some level. None of it is proven at all. And none of it's like really even necessarily how you may experience Freya. All deities are different to each person in their practice, and no one person will have the same experience as another. Period. It's just not going to happen. So, on to the stories. One person said, Freya has been an important part of my life for several years now. I have had a number of run-ins with friendly cats after doing rituals for her. Once I finished a devotion and went and opened my living room curtains at nighttime, and there was a cat I'd never seen before just sitting on my outside steps looking at me. Another time, I had done some devotions and went for a walk, and a neighborhood cat, again, one I'd never seen before, wandered right up to me and began rubbing me and letting me pet him. Coincidence? Possibly, but still. She's pretty responsive when reached out to, and I've had any number of visions, flashes of insight, and so on when interacting with her. Here is another one. She is one of the only deities which appear to me in dreams. I think this suits her nature, with her falcon cloak being able to travel between worlds and being known for skills in magic. Others also have said she favors pathworking. Pathworking being similar to like astral travel or hedge riding, just a different version of that, more of a Norse version, I believe, on the same spectrum of what that is. Another person, I feel like she came to me and gave me that spiritual motherly hug and guidance that I desperately needed at a certain time in my life when I didn't really realize I needed it. That's nice. I love that. One person, when describing her energy in general, her energy is wild, fierce, independent, and at times extremely sexual. Those are some strong words. I loved the wild, fierce, independent. Ooh, yeah. Woman power. I love it. I love it so much. Had to add that in there. So here's another one. Prior to 2016, I was an atheist. And then late in that year, I had an accident at work where I nearly lost my life. She came to me in my moment of need. If not for her, I don't think I would have survived. Since then, she has been the main focus of my personal practice. One important thing that she has taught me is that she is a deity of resiliency. She has a lot to teach about how to keep your head held high when you're dealing with trials and trauma. From an online source speaking about their particular experiences with Freya, Freya can teach you to be yourself unapologetically. She is a literal warrior. While Freya might not help you slowly release your trauma, she will teach you to grow a tougher skin and make your life what you want it. Those are all the stories, and then I found a wonderful quote while I was looking for these stories about goddesses like Freya in general, and I think it needs shared. It needs shared. I'll share it probably some other times too, but this quote is, "A pattern emerges. The strongest goddesses embody sacred polarity. They are goddesses that straddle the line between good and bad, dark and light, love and war, birth and death. Freya is another example of the depths of a goddess's divinity and therefore of a woman's. Alright guys, thank you all for listening and or watching today. Full disclosure, I have had Freya reaching out to me in a few unignorable ways, and this podcast was written in her honor, and I will state that here, and that is my intention. If you have not heard yet, I'm doing readings for the public. I do dream interpretations, and I do in-depth tarot readings, big, extensive tarot readings. And then I also do a combination of tarot, a small bit of tarot reading that leads into a spirit guide and or ancestral exploration. And what I mean by ancestral spirit guide exploration is I can sit with you and we'll call out your spirit guides and for your ancestors, and you can sometimes the mediumship is working and your ancestors will come through and you can talk to specific ancestors sometimes, and almost always I can reach your spirit guides and we can get a little bit more information about them if that's what you want to learn about, if that's what's on your mind. And the tarot is kind of a way to get into that. Anyways, I'm not going to take so much time explaining it, but I'm doing these readings for the public. You can go to strangeinsights.com if you want to talk about that, or and that will be in the description. But honestly, you can reach out to me just on any platform, any personal message, direct message. If you want to go to Journey to Your Soul and message me there, that's perfectly fine. I'm under Alice Strange on Journey to Your Soul. And then you guys know I have links to all my social media. You can find me. So if you find me and you want a reading, just let me know. We'll work it out, okay? That would be great. I would love to be able to do that for you guys. And I do want to say, I know I fell off the map there for a little while, and so if you're here now listening to this podcast, thank you so much. Really, you truly are. My loyal fans really are what keep me going and driving for this podcast. I really appreciate you. So remember, be well, be kind, and may your curiosities for this world never fade.